Harmony, my fellow Chibits. Tokyo Ghoul Chapter 42 is finally out. It's been about 2 weeks since I have done a video on Tokyo Ghoul. God, I feel like I was dying slowly with the lack of Tokyo Ghoul, to be honest, because as you all know, it's very fun to sit down and research this series and talk about it for a good long time, because, I mean, there's just so much to learn from the universe of Tokyo Ghoul. And I know this review is a couple hours late, but I think by now majority of you Chibits know the reason why the reviews don't come out like an hour or two after the chapter comes out is because I take maybe 4 or 5 hours just to look up everything and break down the chapter before I could say it in this video. So that's kind of why there is a slight delay. And yeah, so as per usual when it comes to Tokyo Ghoul, I don't know if this review is going to be long or short. And by now, I think majority of you know I'm going to be going through page by page, through panel by panel, breaking it down, and then also talking about some certain things that really stand out I need to talk about. And so the best way to sum up this episode of Tokyo Ghoul, for instance, my review, is genetics and evolution. That is the best way to really, I guess, sum up my review before I even begin, because there is something in this chapter that plays with the main in-game goal of the series. Like, there is the in-game goal in sight. Like, we finally got a glimpse of it with this chapter. Yeah, and I don't think majority of us probably realize that, but when I saw it, I'm like, okay, there's no way in fuck this is, you know, something that was just added, and it wasn't. So I did some research, and I discovered a lot of information. So before I get into that, let's start with page 1 of Tokyo Ghoul Chapter 42. And actually, whoa, before I even start, I want to let you all know, I know Chapter 43 is already out in raw form, and when it does come out, as you know by now, I will be taking a couple hours after it comes out to research some things, because I've been told that the next chapter is way better than this chapter, and if that is the case, oh shit, because this chapter is so fucking good. Like, I was shocked. Like, probably one of my favorite chapters of Tokyo Ghoul, yeah. This is personally one of my favorite chapters, just because of the meaning behind it. So, yeah, if Chapter 43 comes out today, expect it very late tonight, early tomorrow morning, because it takes a lot of time to research Tokyo Ghoul. So yeah, let's begin. Page 1. If you want to come and follow with me when I'm doing these reviews, you know, you could turn over to the chapter and read it with me. So, soon as the chapter starts off, we continue off where Chapter 41 began, or ended on, and we see it to where Toka and Shu are having a conversation at the Cafe Ri. And with this, they come to see where Shu is initiating to where he needs help. He's asking Toka and Nishiki and all of them for help. For instance, like, hey, yeah, I know you've had to hear about Kaneki, like, you know, how Kaneki is Sasaki, and that we need to get his memories back. And majority of the dialogue here is, like, Shu just trying to talk to his old pals, like, hey, we need to go save Sasaki. I mean, he's being brainwashed and things like that. And the way Shu goes about it, he's like, hey, I know he's been here, because in the picture I've seen, it shows that he was in this cafe. So Hori actually took pictures of Sasaki when he was in this cafe, but also Shu's upset because why didn't none of them tell him about Kaneki? Because most likely Toka and all of them knew how Shu was. For instance, how distraught he was after the death of Kaneki, how he was in depression. I think majority of them most likely knew that the gourmet was not in the best top form. And it does kind of make me question a lot of things why Toka and them wouldn't tell Shu any of this, because I mean, let's think about this, okay? Shu in the past, we do know he was kind of, I guess, how to put this, he wanted Kaneki's anus. He really wanted Kaneki's anus. He wanted to eat him really badly. Like, he really wanted to eat him. And I guess, in a certain way, I guess the reason why Toka and them didn't tell Shu was because he might try to do the exact same thing and eat, you know, Kaneki. But even then, we see that Shu is entirely different from what he used to be. He's not just going after Sasuke or Kaneki just to eat him anymore. It's more of a friendship, an old bond he's had, and he doesn't want to let go. And that's kind of the way this direction with Shu is going. And so to see this, how he's like wondering, like, why didn't you tell me? It kind of makes me question the same thing, like, why wouldn't they tell him? Because they had to see how depressed he was. And I mean, if you were friends with this guy, or you know this person, and he's all depressed because of a death of someone, and you know this person is alive, wouldn't the nice thing to be to tell this person? But they didn't even tell him. But here is the reasoning behind why they didn't tell Shu anything about it. Toka pretty much goes on the fence and says, like, why would we want to... Actually, I'm on page 3, by the way. I just want to clarify. I'm on page 3 when Nishiki pops up. They pretty much say, like, why would we want to reawaken Kaneki's memories in Sasaki? Because look at his life right now. And actually, I've mentioned this once before, many chapters ago. I mean, let's look at the lifestyle of Sasaki and Kaneki. I've highlighted this before, so I'm not going to go completely into it because I have talked about this quite a bit already. And if you watch my long reviews, most likely you know what I'm talking about. But Sasuke and Kaneki's lifestyle has been very different. Their upbringing to the way they're born. Because even though Sasuke, he's 20-something, and I mean, he doesn't remember his past or where he originated from as Kaneki, his life starts when he lost his memories. And if you look at his upbringing, he has a family now, kind of. You can consider his Quinkek's children around him as his family. You have it to where Akuta is his mother, Arima is his father, and so Kaneki has this family now, and he's not alone like he was in the past. I mean, look at the first couple chapters of Tokyo Ghoul, and throughout majority of part 1, Kaneki was alone. He was a very alone child that really didn't know what to do. And I mean, his mother died on him at an early age. His father's gone too and dead. I mean, you have to think about this, like, poor Kaneki, he was by himself. And then seeing the different upbringing of how Kaneki and Sasuke are different, this is where Toka and Nishiki start mentioning, like, look at his life right now. Do you want to rip this life away from Sasuke? Because it looks like he's actually having a good time. He's being able to have happiness. He's not in the depression state to where he's running around trying to protect everybody in the cafe at the cost of his own well-being. He's actually enjoying himself, and he's also not being hunted down by the white doves. And that right there just goes to show you what they're trying to really get at. The reason why they're not really trying to let Sasuke know about his past is because what is the right thing to do as a friend of a person? Tell them the truth, that the life they used to live that was very horrible, bad, and you were just ripped away from your normal life and you're forced to eat people, or let them live this new life they have in ignorance and allow them to enjoy themselves and live in happiness. What is the real path you would choose for your friend if you were in that position? Personally, I would probably allow Kaneki to be Sasuke, because it would be very cruel to rip him from this happiness that he has now and do something even worse. I mean, I guess hiding the truth is kind of horrible, but even then, sometimes hiding the truth is the right thing to do, especially when it comes into circumstances of Kaneki and Sasuke. So, the entire bit with Toka and Nishiki and Shu, I know where Shu is coming from, and I know where Toka and Nishiki are coming from. I understand both sides of this, and Shu wants Kaneki back because he doesn't want him living a lie. And Nishiki and Toka think it's best he lives a lie because it's better for his lifestyle as he lives now. And it's better he just doesn't get chased down by the doves every day and every night. He has to worry and run away from them. Because we do know if Sasuke deserts, you know, the doves, CCG, he's going to be killed. He's going to be hunted down by Arima. Arima is going to come after his anus. It's already said and done. We know for a fact that's going to happen. So, with that said, it makes a lot of sense why. I think majority of them know. I think they've probably done their own research into Sasuke's situation with how he's probably been trained underneath Arima and like kind of fought beside him. I think majority of them most likely know where he stands with the doves. And I feel like if they were to interrupt that, Arima would personally come down and hunt Sasuke, which has already kind of been implied a couple times already through the past couple chapters of Tokyo Ghoul because of how Arima was reacting when he saw Sasuke kind of go crazy with his Kakuja. So now that I've got past that, let's see, I've covered the lifestyle he's living. Shu's getting upset. He's like, we need to bring him back into the Ghoul world. Okay, we got all that out of the way. Now, pretty much what goes on to this is, like, Toka says, like, this cafe exists because of Kaneki, which makes a lot of sense, because if you remember at the end of part 1 of Tokyo Ghoul, Toka was wanting to make a cafe because she wanted a place for Kaneki to return to. If he ever returns, he will have a place to come back to and call his home, and that's kind of why this cafe exists. It solely exists for Kaneki's return. If he ever needs a place, he ever has to run away, and he ever is in trouble or he might die, this cafe, Toka and them are for him. They're there for him to return to. And that is kind of their situation right now. And so, Toka says, like, it's not that we don't care about him. It's not that we hate him. It's just, we want him to live the best life he possibly can live. But if he goes down a dark path where he must go back into the ghoul world, this cafe is here for him. So it's very sweet. And Toka pretty much fires shots at Shu, saying, like, you have a huge ego, Tsukiyama. Like, you have a huge ego, you're allowing your ego to control you to where you want Kaneki back, and it's very conceited of you to actually want him to come back into the world. It's just like your own conceit and ego that's dragging him back. And what's really crazy is that Shu admits he has an ego. He has this ego, he's conceited, and I'm like, holy shit, just to see how Shu admits this is something I didn't expect, because he would never have said something like this earlier on in Tokyo Ghoul, like the first 30 chapters and 40 chapters of Tokyo Ghoul, or even for the majority of part 1 of Tokyo Ghoul. Shu probably would have never have said he would have had like this huge ego where he's conceited. I don't think he would have ever said that. So that goes to prove to us that he has some really great character development that has changed him mentally and physically in some ways because of what he's been through with the loss of Kaneki. So great job. Great job, Tsukiyama, for developing even more as a character. Not just wanting to eat Kaneki's anus, but also admitting that you are conceited. That's a good job, Tsukiyama. That's some really great character development you got. So now that that's over, I got this out of the way, and pretty much you have it to where Toka says, like, I understand how he feels and all that, I understand his feelings. It shows you Toka probably at one point or time in the past when she knew that Sasuke was Kaneki, probably tried to go and reawaken Sasuke. I think she probably tried to do that at one point, the way she was acting with, I understand his feelings. So really cool little dialogue right there we got to see between Nishiki and Toka at the end of that conversation. Which leads into the next part that's pretty fucking funny. So this part is going to be pretty simple to discuss because what's funny about it is Ure bees Ure. Like he tries to manipulate Shirazu in a way saying like, hey, you need to be more useless and all that. Like you need to become a Kagane user that's a little bit useless and stuff, or, you know, useful. And you could be a good team leader. And in a way, Ure was trying to manipulate Shirazu to where he could be worse and just do something bad and ruin his reputation. Ure was trying to do this to Shirazu. And it's funny how this turns out, because in what Ure said to him, it was actually unintentionally improving Shirazu as a character, which leads into something I want to talk about. You have it to where Shirazu, he decides to take upon himself to cut his hair for some way to improve himself to where he could be a better leader. And he does these actions because of what Ure says. And what's funny about this, it makes me laugh my ass off, is because every time Ure tries to do something bad, like tries to ruin someone, it always backfires. It always fucking backfires to where he actually does good instead of bad. And it's so funny because no matter what he does, like he tries to ruin Shirazu, it makes it to where he does something good instead, unintentionally. And so you kind of feel bad for Ure. I mean, all his evil words he says actually turns out to be something good that helps out these characters. So, in another sense, if, let's say Ure was trying to set something up to where he wanted Sasuke to get the shit beat out of him, okay? Get, like, his shit knocked in. Most likely from his words and dialogue, the way Ure would set that up might turn around and make it to where Sasuke wrecks everybody and just beats the shit out of them instead. That's kind of the karma Ure has right now. Every time he tries to do something bad, it turns out good. So yeah, I just gotta point that out. So next thing we come to find out is more about Shirazu's sister, which is going to lead into the main topic of discussion with this review. So prepare yourself for a very long-winded fucking discussion, because I have a lot of evidence and a lot of things to talk about when it comes to this crucial point with Shirazu's sister. And when I saw this, like, on Twitter, I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? Like, is that a genetic mutation? I remember I said that on Twitter as soon as I saw it, and as soon as I saw that, I had to do my own personal research. I'm like, okay, this is very weird. Something like this wouldn't pop up if it didn't have some form of meaning to the overall universe of Tokyo Ghoul, so I will talk about that in just a second. So let's discuss it. So you have it to where we go to see before Shirazu became, like, you know, a ghoul, like, you know, half ghoul, kind of like a Quinkex. He had his sister. We have already heard something about his sister in the past, of how he got the treatment to become, like, you know, with a Kagane, because he wanted money to be able to pay for his sister's treatment. Well, we come to find out what the treatment is for. His sister, when she was younger, I guess pre-teen to teenager, like probably early teens, maybe 13 or 14, maybe even 10, his sister had this pimple that had popped up on her face. And what's weird about this is this pimple was just a regular pimple. So they told their dad about it, and they went to a doctor. As time progressed, there's not really a time frame really given. Like, there's no time frame at all that is given at all. But you can assume it's probably maybe a couple months after that happened. Maybe a couple weeks, a couple months. You have it to where a Kagane grows out of his sister's face. I'm not fucking joking. A Kagane, let me put some quotations on this. This girl, Haru, is a human. Quotations. She is a human girl. She is not a ghoul. From as far as we know, Haru is a regular human girl. She is not a ghoul. She's not a half ghoul. She's not a ghoul. So, why the fuck is a human getting a Kagane? Now, I will discuss this. I know it's because of RC cells, but I'm just leading into the main point of discussion. See, from the look of this, a Kagane appearing on the face, that's fucked up beyond relief. Like, that's really weird, because even in ghoul standards, that's, like, weird as shit. Because, you know, a Kagane is supposed to appear on the back, not on the fucking face. And that right there, like, yo, what the living hell? Like, what in the fuck am I looking at? And this leads into one of the most revolutionary things that has come to Tokyo Ghoul in the series. It reveals the in-game card of the series. So, let me do the quote. I'm going to quote this, what it says. RC cell oversecretion. Diagnosed as ROS. Humans originally have a small amount of RC cells. Due to unknown reasons, oversecretion will result in the disease known as ROS. It's not really said what ROS stands for. It's not. But it says this disease is known as ROS. It is said to occur once in every 1 to 3 million people. So 1 out of 1 to 3 million people gets this disease. So that means 1 person out of every 1 to 3 million people born gets this disease. That's very low. That's a low chance. But even then, that's still pretty high in some ways. So that's how this disease comes about. So every human has RC cells, which we kind of already know. It's already been kind of established that humans do, because that's why ghouls eat them, for the RC cells. So let's look at this more closely. Main symptoms of this disease includes the formation of a Kagane-like structure. So a Kagane forms on a fucking human. A Kagane. That's a ghoul. That's a ghoul-type aspect of a person. Why is a Kagane-like structure forming on a human? I'm just throwing it out there. I'm going to explain it in a second. The formation of a Kagane-like structure. If the condition gets worse, it causes extreme pain, nausea, altered memories, regression of the nerves, and becoming an infant, and will degrade the 5 senses. Oh shit, that is bad. That is really fucking bad. And then here's the next thing. There is no known treatment. The only way to control it is through RC inhibitors. And then this is what his sister says. I want go see. And oh yeah, actually I have a link Chibi gave me on Twitter, and I want to thank the Chibi that actually gave me this link to tell me what the little sister Haru said in this panel, because supposedly the translators didn't add this dialogue into the chapter, so it wasn't really shown, and it actually explains more about Shirazu's character. So the translations I got from a fellow Chibi that linked me, the picture says, Genshi Ani-chan. This is what, you know, the little sister is saying in the hospital bed while she has the Kagane growing out of her face. Genshi Ani-chan. Ani-chan, I want to be beautiful. As beautiful as a princess. Now, let me, you know, kind of refresh your memory. The reason why these words are so important and why it's kind of upsetting that the translators left them out is because these are kind of the words that Nutcracker, Nuts, said right before she died. You remember in the final part where Nuts, before she died, she's like, I want to be beautiful? The reason why that death impacted Shirazu so much was because his sister said the exact same words. So that is why Shirazu is traumatized by the words of Nuts. Is because of his sister. You get it now. So there's some very important dialogue. That's fucked up, ain't it? So now that I've got that out of the way, let's talk about this disease. Before I even talk about anything left of the chapter. So, this disease. Okay, where to begin? Okay, this disease is possible in all humans, okay? Pretty much what this means is that every human has RC cells inside of them. And that means that this disease can occur in all humans. And what's weird about it is a human experiencing traits of a cognate. That stood out for me, because a human shouldn't have a cognate. Like, no, that shouldn't happen. Unless humans evolved from ghouls. Let me explain. We don't really know much about ghouls' origins. All we know is about the Washu clan fighting ghouls in the past. That's all we know of when it comes to ghouls. We have no idea where the origins of ghouls originated from. But now thinking about it after this chapter, it raises many eyebrows, and it kind of gives many examples of theories that is very possible and might be the in-game goal of the series. Because there is evidence supporting this theory I'm about to mention. See, for a human to experience a cognate-like structure, it makes me assume that this disease is in early stages of turning a human into a ghoul. Let me explain. This disease occurs in 1 out of every 1 to 3 million people. That's when this disease pops up. And in the past, if all humans had RC cells, for instance, that means in the past there was humans that experienced this exact same disease. So what is stopping this disease, let's say, from forming in the right spots, or being not as aggressive as some of the examples we have seen, for instance, with Haru in this chapter? What if this disease, ROS, formed on the back region of a human, formed a cognate-like structure? It wasn't as fatal as some of the other examples was the disease. Most likely the chances of getting this type of ROS disease is probably rarer than 1 out of 3 million, or 1 out of every 3 million, but still, it's possible. Why do I feel like this disease is the early pre-stages of, like, evolution? Let me explain. If this disease has been occurring for a long time, through generations or centuries of humans, it might be possible that humans evolved with this disease. Like, this disease forced humans to evolve in a certain way into ghouls. See, this disease focuses on RC cells. RC cells are one of the main sources that ghouls eat. Ghouls eat RC cells. They eat humans because they need the RC cells inside of them. What if the only way to kind of keep the disease away is kind of to eat people? Eat more RC cells. See, humans evolved into ghouls because they needed to feed their oversecretion of RC cells that was part of the disease. And so they evolved to where they would eat other humans before they could be able to live on. But it's not that, though. Let's explain more into this and how more ghouls popped up in society. Let's say one human, okay? One human managed to get this disease that was probably on the back region like a ghoul, and it formed them into a ghoul. And let's say this person was compatible with said human being. Let's say this human that got this disease was compatible with another human being and mated with the human, had sex, for instance, and had a child. Let's say a female. That's a perfect example. Let's say a female got this disease. She was fine. And then she had this lover. And as she grew up, she got this lover and she married said person. For instance, she either married him and then had sex with this person. She got pregnant because of this human. Even though she's a human, she kind of looks like a ghoul. She got pregnant. And in the act of this, she probably either A, she was able to have a child without any problems, or she ate her husband, or ate some form of RC cells to be able to have this child, similar to Eto. And in a way, this caused genetic traits to where more ghouls started appearing, because if this trait of this disease can be passed on because of RC cells, that means that it's possible that this trait could pass on to where it could be livable. For instance, this disease could be in the lower regions of the back to where you can live and survive this disease, which turns into ghouls. You get my point. So what I'm getting at is that it's possible that in the past there was a human that got this disease, was able to survive it, had a child, and then they got the right compatible person, like, and had a child, and then the child had kids, and so forth. And that is how the ghoul population formed and spread, because of genetic traits. Makes a lot of sense if you think about it, because this is really possible. And even today's society, if like certain species, you know, grow, they usually evolve past certain issues or problems. Like if there's like an issue in the natural environment that they need to overcome, usually certain species will evolve past it. And one of the main things that probably were threatening humans were this disease. Get it? So this disease is preparation for humans turning into ghouls. Now, let's go into the next subject to talk about. So the next part after that is to prove this theory is what the doctor says. Yes, the doctor that turned Kaneki into a ghoul talks about this disease. You ready for this? I'm about to shock the shit out of you. Okay, let's see. Let me go into the next part of this where I can read it, where I have it all. Okay. The doctor says that there is a twisted birdcage holding back humanity. This is chapter 99. I want to clarify, this is chapter 99 of Tokyo Ghoul, okay? Go back to part 1 of chapter 99 if you want to see this for yourself. In the chapter, it is said, the doctor says that there is a 0% chance that his experiments will succeed. Like, he cannot get over the 0% chance of having a good working experiment. For instance, what his research is about, turning, you know, humans into half ghouls. For some reason, it won't go over 0%. But this is very weird. It goes against what he has done in the past. Let me explain. He made Kaneki with Rize. Okay? He made Kaneki with Rize, and he's still making ghouls with Rize. But he says that his chances of doing stuff, like his experiments succeeding, is 0%. Why? See, the lowest it could possibly be, since he did make a successful person like Kaneki, would be 0.01%. It shouldn't be at a flat 0%. So it's weird how he says something like this when it's actually a 0.01% chance instead of a 0% chance, unless he means something else entirely. The doctor is not experimenting to make half ghouls. Yeah. He's experimenting to make evolved species of half ghouls. Let me explain how this kind of this is emphasized in this chapter, and you won't realize it until you read this latest chapter, Tokyo Ghoul Read. When he's talking about how the world is trapped in a cage, if you look at this cage, you'll see like skyscrapers and stuff in a ball. Like it's in a little ball, and this cage is wrapped around in these Kagune-like structures. And these Kagune-like structures look like what Haru, Shirazu's sister, had on her face. What he's trying to imply is this disease is encasing the entire world where it cannot evolve past it. For instance, he's trying to find research to where he can make it to where humanity and ghouls can evolve past the ROS disease. Now, the perfect example why the doctor believes this is possible, ready for this? Is because of Eto. Yes. Eto is an evolved form of ghouls. There's many examples of this. She's not just a regular half ghoul. She's even more than that. Now you're all asking, how the fuck is she? Besides being born as a half ghoul, half human, there's different traits about her that separate her from Kaneki. Eto can eat regular human food. It's been implied, it's pretty much fucking obvious. She can eat regular human food. Eto can. She's mentioned it before. So, since Eto can eat regular human food, this means many things. For one, that means that Eto has evolved past the disease. Because the disease, the ROS disease, requires you to consume RC cells. Think about it. So, Eto has evolved past the disease where she doesn't really need to necessarily eat humankind. So the reason for the doctor to be doing these experiments is not to make more ghouls like Kaneki, but to make ghouls like Eto. Here's the evidence that backs this claim. Think about the ending of Tokyo Ghoul Part 1. Just think about it real quick. What was the doctor and Eto trying to do? Make more ghouls, kind of like Kaneki, but not exactly. The thing for this is because they want to actually use Yoshimura, Eto's father, as a base to make more ghouls like Eto. Because, as I already said, Eto can consume human food. It's implied she can consume human food, and she also can consume humans for RC cells. So she's evolved past this. She's an evolved species, a higher form of life than even ghouls itself. And so, when the doctor mentions 0% chance, it's more of 0% chance of making species of ghouls like Eto instead of species of ghouls like Kaneki. That's why he said 0%. So, the reason why Yoshimura is being used to make half ghouls is not because he wants to make more like Kaneki, for instance, like turning someone like Sato into a ghoul. It's to make more ghouls kind of similar to Eto. It's not because, you know, Eto's father has a powerful Kagane. That's one of the reasons, but it's also because they're trying to make more like Eto, to where they can finally break the species barrier to where ghouls can actually evolve past humans and ghouls alike into someone like Eto. Yeah, just blew your fucking mind, didn't I? Like, holy shit. See, my mind exploded when I found out about that, like how Eto is an evolved species of what she really is, and also how the entire in-game goal of the Doctor and Eto now, the reason for what they're doing, is to make more ghouls like Eto. Yeah. That's crazy. That's fucking crazy. I gotta compliment Ishida for setting up his universe like that, to where the goal now is kind of evolution in genetics. Yeah. See, humans are a species that are still around. They still dominate the Earth, but they're like before humans evolved into ghouls. For instance, you have humans, like, let's look at this in the gene pool. Let's say apes, and then humans. That's kind of what's going on here. You have it to where humans turn into ghouls, and now they're trying to figure out a way to where the ghouls can evolve past ghouls into something like Eto, to where humans and ghouls can coexist. See, the main point of Tokyo Ghoul since the very beginning was some way of trying to figure out a way for the bridge can be built between the ghouls and the humans. And Eto is kind of a being that symbolizes this bridge. Because if more ghouls like Eto can be born, someone that could probably mate with Eto. Think about this. If a ghoul can mate with Eto, what would that said person like Eto bear a child? Like, if she was to bear a child, what would happen to that child? Hear me out, okay? As I previously said, most likely in the past, before ghouls really were common, or most likely it was a person that had this disease and was able to survive it and then had a child. What if Eto, or the main goal of the Doctor, was to try to make it to where there is a male mate for Eto to be able to pass on her genetics into more ghouls like her species. Think about it. See, Eto's kind of like the queen bee of her species. She's the beginning of an entirely new race. And, of course, this new race has no one to mate with. So what if the Doctor's entire goal is not just to make more species, but also to make a compatible mate for Eto? Think about that. So what if the goal is not really just to make more species like Eto, but trying to find a mate that can be with Eto and have a child, and then pass on these genetics to make more like her kind, that can freely breed with humans and ghouls? Yeah, just blew your fucking mind, didn't I? So, that right there, I think I've explained enough. I don't think I need to break that down anymore. That makes it very obvious that this series is now the main objective of the series, besides what we have seen with the fucked up personality of Sasuke Kaneki. It's more about genetics and evolution, and Eto is the queen bee. Now I've got past that, I can finally move on to the next parts of this. Actually, there's one more actually I do want to talk about. The Kakuja. Yeah, I almost completely forgot about this. I want to also point out how this genetics and evolution also has more evidence to back it because of the Kakuja. I want to quote the actual Wicca, the Wicca on the Kakuja. It's the first line in the biology section of the Kakuja. This is what it says. It is said through cannibalism, a ghoul absorbs RC cells over secretion. And this uptake of RC cells increases their concentration within a ghoul's body. If the concentration becomes high enough, for instance, kind of what happens to the ROS disease, when the oversecretion becomes high enough, it causes that disease, If it becomes high enough, it may trigger a mutation. It may trigger a mutation within the cells and lead to the formation of a new Kagane. Let me rephrase this. What happened to Haru, Shirazu's sister? Too much RC cells built up inside of her. It caused a mutation. Kagane popped out of her face. You get it. These RC cells mutate. More evidence to back up that Akakuja was implying that ghouls and humans are the same. They're the same species, just evolved forms of each other. Yeah. Okay. Now I can move on. So, now that I've got that out of the way, next page is, damn, it's been fucking... It's been like 30-something minutes. Oh, God. You guys are gonna kill me. Okay, so, yeah, we kind of find out why Shirazu, he's been running around trying to get money now. It's because for his sister's treatment, he's running out of money, and he needs to find a way for he can have more money for his sister's treatment to keep her alive. And hopefully one day, since this disease is one of the main crucial enemies of the game, like the series now, I wonder if there will become a cure, like some form of cure in the future for this. Maybe Eto could have the essence of a cure for this disease. As also another possibility. Maybe her blood or something could have a cure for this disease. If, like, maybe if Shirazu's sister was to get some of the blood from Eto, maybe, since it has RC cells inside of it, it might be able to heal his sister. Think about it. She is a hybrid. Okay, so Shirazu, he's contemplating of how he wants money, and he's like, I don't want to use my Quinkei because, you know, it reminds me of my sister. Now that we know that his Quinkei nuts reminds him of his sister, and now it's very understandable why he doesn't want to use the Quinkei, because besides of it just reminding him of nuts, it reminds him of his sister. It's very fucked up. It's very fucked up. And you have it to where one of his fellow co-workers talk to him and say, like, hey, you need to understand that you need to be able to kind of pack up like this wall. Like, over time, as you feel these emotions, you'll pack up this mud over your heart to where you'll be able to use said weapon. And he's like, I had a similar experience. I couldn't use my Quinkei when I first got it when I killed a ghoul. He's like, no matter what species it is, I still took a life. That's what he says. And it makes a lot of sense. And he says, like, Sasaki is also very similar to Arima, which we already know. There's a lot of correlations between them. And it kind of makes sense. And he also goes in to say that Arima started ghoul investigating when he was 15 years old. Holy shit. Arima was a ghoul investigator at age 15. Oh my god, dude. Like, oh my god. Age fucking 15, he was kicking asses. Like, he was kicking asses, tearing up ghouls like it was nothing. Like, oh my god. Fucking Arima. OP and broken. And he says that Arima was a stone-cold guy in the past when he was 15, but he's kind of grown out of it just a little bit. So, goes to show you Arima has changed a little bit over time. And this is what the dude says about it. He's like, hey, I think the ones who are troubled by the prey they catch are mentally much more healthier than those who aren't. What this is trying to imply is people that aren't affected by killing ghouls, like for instance how Shirazu is affected by nuts, his death, people that aren't affected by their first kill are usually the unstable and unbalanced people. And what this tries to imply is that Arima is not really balanced as a person, or mentally stable. Because, remember what he said, just a second ago, what I just said. He says that Arima was stone cold when he was 15. He was very stone cold when he was killing ghouls. That would prove that he was not mentally healthy. More correlations to Kaneki Sasaki. So, this little dialogue right here indirectly lets us know that Arima's fucked up. Which I think we kind of all knew a little bit, but this lets us know that Arima's kind of mentally unstable in some ways. Yeah. So, now we got past that, we know what Shirazu's going through, and, you know, Shirazu's actually going to be taking a smoke. Like, he grabbed a smoke from Fura. Like, he grabbed a fucking cigarette. Shirazu, don't smoke, man. Don't smoke. Don't fucking smoke. But he did anyway, so, fuck. And then he gets his haircut, which I've already discussed, so I don't really need to talk about that. They're all laughing at him and stuff, like, why'd you get a haircut? And Urai's like, oh my god, he did something good and all that. So we bring up the next part, where you have to where CCG realizes that Rose and Ogiri Trio are working together in some ways. They're connected, and they're starting to realize this, and they're having a board meeting talking about, okay, so what should we do now? Since they're working together, and there's so many variables right now that we don't know if all of Ogiri Tree is working with Rose, or some of Ogiri Tree are working with Rose, we really need to be cautious, because something very bad could happen. Because, I mean, go figure, if someone like the One-Eyed King, Eto, was to be with, you know, Rose, that'd be very fucking bad. Like, very bad, which is implied at the end of the chapter. Eto is, yeah, I'll get that moment. But, so they're worried that if they are not cautious, it's going to cost a lot of lives, because they need to realize, since Ogiri and Rose are working together, there's so many things that can go wrong. And they bring up the next part where they talk about Operation Mask. And Operation Mask is talking about how, you know, Sasuke wants to take his squad and turn them kind of into ghouls. For instance, fake them, dressing them up like ghouls with ghoul mask, and going undercover so they can find out more about ghoul society and see what's going on. That's kind of what Sasuke's trying to do, and with the ending part of this dialogue of the CCG meeting, they approve that Sasuke can go ahead with the operation. And now we're moving on into the next part we need to go into. For instance, Sasuke going with Psycho and Shirazu, Ude, and all of them. I was going to say Shirazu once again. Whoa, what the fuck. But they're going to be going, once again, into the Ghoul Society with masks, and it's going to be fucking cool. That's going to be really fucking cool to see that. I can't wait to see all their different masks and stuff, how they look. But, yeah, the operation gets approved. Everybody approves. It was a, let's see, what was the vote count at? It was to agree to going with this operation was 6, and the people against it was 4. So, 6 versus 4. Pretty decent. I mean, I'm glad that, you know, they got to do the operation, because we get to see Sasuke with a mask. I wonder what Sasuke's gonna fucking look like. I wonder if he's gonna wear his old mask, like, you know, the mask that was sent to him by Uta. I wonder if he's gonna wear that mask. Oh, God. The fanboy. I want a fucking fanboy if I see that shit. Yo. If I see fucking Sasuke wear... Oh. Okay, well, we'll see when we get there. So, we have it to where Akira wants to talk with Psycho. And we have it briefly where it's mentioned that most likely the reason why Akira wants to talk with Psycho is because she saw Almond. As we know in last chapter, Psycho saw Almond. We already know this. It's kind of confirmed. So, Akira is kind of well aware of Almond being a ghoul. Cool. So, they're trying to figure out where Almond is, and they probably realize now Almond's not really on the bad side. He's actually working with them. So I'm glad Akira's trying to find out more about Almond. And we lead into the next part of the chapter, which is the final page. And supposedly there is graffiti, like I'm looking at it right now. There's graffiti on the walls of this final page, and it's in German. And thankfully, a couple of Chibits actually sent me some links for the translations of this. I want to thank the Chibits that sent me the translations because I get to mention them in this review. Here is what this graffiti actually means. So let me find it. So the graffiti on the left side, not the all the way to the left with the X. Supposedly the X on the graffiti is CCG. Most likely Eto marked it out, or other ghouls marked out CCG. But whatever it was, you know, it was CCG on the left wall. Okay, so the middle one says this: between blind people, the one-eyed is the king, which implies that Eto is the one-eyed king, which is kind of now very obvious because that's what that dialogue kind of represents, because Eto appears as soon as this is said with the German. So Eto is confirmed to be the one-eyed king. That officially confirms it. So, yeah. So the second one right behind Kanye says this: the one who can choose between different things has a problem because of this possibility of choices. What this means is that the person closest to Kanye with a different choice, for instance, Shu, he's left with many choices right now, and there could be a problem with the outcome of the choices, which we already knew. We already knew that about this because I've already talked about quite a bit already, that whatever Shu does, it probably could kill off his entire family if he chooses wrong. So this, once again, this dialogue behind Kanye implies that if Shu doesn't play his cards right, everything's fucked. So, now that we got that out of the way, I think that pretty much ends this review of Tokyo Ghoul. Cannot wait for chapter 43 that comes out in a couple of days, or probably later today or tomorrow it'll probably be out. And Eto meeting Kanye, yeah, oh god, I can't wait to see what she has to say. But, for now, though, my afterthoughts of the chapter, pretty damn good. I enjoyed it. I think this is one of my favorite chapters yet because of the evolution and genetics and stuff, because it implies what the endgame of the series is about, and always finding out more about Eto is a plus, because, I mean, Eto being the queen bee, and being, like, the evolved species of ghouls and humans, it just shows you that she's way different from even normal half-ghouls. She's different from, you know, Sasuke Kaneki or anybody else. She is, like, a new species entirely. So, I'm glad to see that. I really am. So, tell me your thoughts in the comments below, everybody. I mean, how do you feel about this chapter review I did? And, yeah, it feels good to talk about Tokyo Ghoul once again. You all have a wonderful day or not, wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.